The mahogany doors of room 2154 didn't just open, they exploded. Heads turned, phones lifted, and the oxygen seemed to vanish. Karoline Leavitt, 27 years old, White House press secretary. The administration's sharpest blade stood trembling in the doorway. Her navy suit bore the wrinkles of a sleepless night, and in her hands a manila folder bent like a white flag. Across the crucible of cameras sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, Texas Democrat, former public defender, radiating power in deep purple. Her face was courtroom steel, her presence the weight of a jury filing back into the box. "Miss Crockett," Leavitt began, voice cracking for the first time on live record, "I need to speak with you before this goes any further." Hours earlier, Crockett had filed an $80 million defamation suit, an extraordinary sum aimed at punishing an extraordinary smear. The complaint accused operatives of seeding a false story. Crockett painted as a designer-clad hypocrite, her reputation ground through the machinery of talking points and media echo chambers. Leavitt stepped forward, each heel a confession. "I know what I said was wrong," she admitted, "but there are people named in your suit who..." "Who? What?" Crockett's voice cut through like a gavel. "Who thought they could attack a black woman on national TV and assume she wouldn't fight back?" The racial undertow, long implied, burst into daylight. Members shifted uneasily. Cameras zoomed closer. Crockett didn't need to shout, the silence sharpened every word. "You don't get to rewrite the story at the 11th hour," she said. "You don't get to bury intent in paperwork." Leavitt raised the folder. "This isn't a threat. It's context, emails, texts, directives, proof of who wrote the script." "Begging?" Crockett asked, stepping down with prosecutorial poise. "Or bargaining?" Then came the shock. The press secretary, unflappable at 1,000 briefings, dropped to her knees. Gasps tore the room. Camera flashes strobed. Careers silently recalculated. "Please," Leavitt pleaded. "Not for me. For the staffers who'll be destroyed by this. Drop the suit against them. I'll take the fall. But don't ruin lives over orders they never authored." Crockett's eyes narrowed. "Stand up. You don't get to wield pity when policy drew blood. Stand, or we let the courts decide." You're watching the latest. Make sure to subscribe and tap that like button to stay informed. Leavitt rose, clutching the folder like oxygen. The room tilted with tension. Outside, headlines spun like sirens. Inside, 10 feet separated two women, each holding a different weapon. Crockett's lawsuit, Leavitt's ledger of names. And both knew the same truth. The next words would detonate beyond these walls. The nation didn't just want apologies, it wanted the architecture. Who designed the smear? Who paid for it? Who kept the receipts? And why, if the receipts were real, had Karoline Leavitt come here at all? "Who told you to attack me?" Crockett asked. The question was a scalpel, not in generalities. Names. The word hung there. Names. Everyone in Washington knows the difference between a rumor and a roster. Leavitt inhaled, slow. "Senior advisor Steve Hoffman," she said. He pushed the handbag narrative. He approved the phrasing. "There are messages in here, timestamps, instructions." The gallery erupted. It wasn't a sound so much as a shattering fingers on screens, throats clearing, bodyguards flipping their stances from bored to alert. A few representatives went searching for their poker faces and came up empty. "And the money?" Crockett asked. "Coordination doesn't float by itself." Leavitt nodded. "A painful concession. Donor Richard Blackstone. Third-party contractors. There's an OR firm that packaged cut and paste frames, inauthentic, elitist optics, performative empathy. It moved like a press kit. I didn't write the music. I played it." "You had a choice," Crockett replied, voice cool enough to fog glass. "You always do." "I know." For a heartbeat, the room steadied just long enough to hear the hum of the air vents and the low static of history getting serious. Then the press secretary's voice clicked into the register every crisis communicator dreads: unscripted truth. "I came here to ask for mercy for people lower on the ladder," Leavitt said. "But I also came to confirm the ladder exists. If you drop those staffers, I will testify, publicly, about the directives, the donors, the outsourcing of malice." From the dais, A few members coughed the way people cough when they've swallowed their courage wrong. The chair attempted a pivot to decorum. Decorum waved from a different zip code. Crockett stepped closer. "You want to trade testimony for triage," she said. "I'll consider it. But you don't get redemption for free. You get it with interest, and interest is truth on the record." Leavitt handed over the folder. Let's be clear about what changed in that exchange. The story didn't pivot from spectacle to substance. It was always both. But now the scaffolding appeared, a flow chart of influence, from money to message to mouth. As the document slid across polished wood, it felt like watching one gear of a larger machine grind to a jarring stop. Sparks, then smoke, then the smell of something cooked beyond repair. Inside the folder, timestamps that aligned too neatly, emails that read like stage directions, a spreadsheet that looked less like comms planning and more like a derivatives market for outrage. Amplify this at 8:17 a.m. Clip forthcoming at 10:05. For segment B, if questioned on origin, pivot to values. The machinery wasn't crude. It was elegant in the way con artistry often is. It borrowed the language of reporting to launder the logic of manipulation. Crockett read, eyes flicking with quick predatory precision. Her legal instincts did the math in real time: evidentiary weight, chain of custody, admissibility. Then she did something that separated grandstanding from strategy. She put the folder down. You're watching the latest. Make sure to subscribe and tap that like button to stay informed. "This doesn't erase what you did to me," she said, "but it may expose what they built around you." A buzz rolled across the room and through the networks, a wave that turned thumbnails red and pushed lower thirds into block capitals. In green rooms across the city, pundits rehearsed their "as I've long warned" tones. Out in the hallway, interns formed a spontaneous anthropology of the moment. Eyes wide, voices low, every sentence starting with, "Can you believe?" Inside, the center of gravity shifted to consequences. "Here is my counter," Crockett said, laying it out like a contract signing that forgot to bring champagne. "I keep the suit. I add the names. I remove the junior staff. You testify, under oath, on live television, about every pressure point, every payoff, every just following orders script. No sealed depositions. Sunlight, not shadows." Leavitt stared at the table for a second that felt like a cliff edge. When she looked up, something about her had changed. The spin doctor was gone. In her place, a witness. "Deal," she said. "I'm tired of being useful to people who consider me replaceable." There it was, the cold pivot from loyalty to accountability. The kind of turn that doesn't make heroes so much as it builds trapdoors under villains. The chair tried to insert process. Process looked at the clock. The clock turned its face to the wall. From the back row, a phone lit up with a statement already in draft. "We are concerned about Miss Leavitt's mental health. It would be deployed within the hour. It always is. Let's zoom out. Why did this moment combust? Because it braided three volatile strands. 1. The personalization of politics. We don't just debate policies. We prosecute identities. 2. The weaponization of media cadence. How quickly can a narrative be coded, launched, and validated by a friendly chime of breaking? 3. The economy of expendability. Ambitious juniors are the first to bleed when a story draws sharks. Crockett, who had tried enough cases to know that the best evidence is often the ugliest, did not gloat. She read. She stacked. She built a staircase out of emails. Then she gestured toward the cameras as if to say, "The jury isn't in this room. It's everywhere." To the viewers at home, a gentle reminder. If you want more reporting that names names and follows the money without flinching, hit subscribe. Algorithms don't like sunlight. People do. You're watching the latest. Make sure to subscribe and tap that like button to stay informed. The hearing adjourned for 10 minutes that stretched like wire. Outside, lenses multiplied. Inside, the calculus hardened. A lawsuit that had begun as a rebuke threatened to metastasize into a referendum, not on one press secretary, but on a method. When the gavel returned, The stage had shifted into its second act. There would be testimony. There would be a list. There would be a reckoning, and it would be televised. The next morning, room 2154 looked like Judgment Day. Cameras jammed the aisles, the audience held its breath. Karoline Leavitt entered in plain black funeral attire for a career no notes, only memories of mistakes carved into her. Jasmine Crockett sat waiting, eyes cold as steel. Under oath, Leavitt began, "I'm here to explain how a lie becomes architecture." She described closed-door donor meetings, where optics carried price tags, media firms that manufactured smear kits, and a recording where she was called replaceable. When she named Steve Hoffman, then Richard Blackstone, and held up spreadsheets showing payments to media figures, the chamber erupted. Washington realized this wasn't about one insult. It was the blueprint of a machine. Crockett didn't smile. She nodded once. The lawsuit stood expanded to include the real architects, trimmed to spare the junior staff. Accountability would climb to the top floor. Outside, newsrooms convulsed. Investigations multiplied. Those who once thought themselves untouchable scrambled for cover. In the hallway, the two women paused. "That was reckless," Crockett said. "It was all the courage I had left," Leavitt answered. Then they walked in opposite directions, no embrace, no performance, just parallel exits. That night, spin doctors tried to rewrite the script, unstable, overwhelmed. But what spread wasn't weakness, it was relief. Sunlight had pierced the shadow. The lawsuit would grind on, but the architecture of lies was already leaking into daylight. And one question echoed through Washington. When the machine comes hunting for the next expendable staffer, will someone finally have the courage to say no? Before you go, a gentle CTA stitched into the same fabric as everything above. Like and subscribe. If you want this coverage to keep naming the gears instead of just describing the clock face. The more sunlight, the fewer shadows to hide in. So what remains unresolved? Plenty. Who else sat in those donor rooms and nodded at the weaponization of optics? Which lawmakers outsourced their outrage to consultants paid by the same checkbooks? Which media figures will explain away their placement bonuses with the phrase industry standard and hope you're too tired to care? And the sharpest question of all, when the next operatives go shopping for a junior staffer to carry the blast radius, will that staffer look at this week and say, no? Drop your take in the comments. Should Crockett have dropped the suit once the machinery was exposed? Or is the point precisely to keep it going until consequences stick at the top floor? Did Leavitt do enough to earn leniency? Or is testimony merely the opening act of accountability? We'll be in the replies, sifting signal from noise, following money through the maze, and keeping the spotlight calibrated on the place where power prefers to stand just out of frame. History doesn't turn on apologies. It turns on architecture. Tonight, the blueprints leaked.